Hi, today we are reading from the front desk by Kelly Yang, Chapter 31. Chapter 31 begins on page 135. At school, Jason continued making fun of my clothes. Even the sixth graders were in on it now. At first, I managed to convince myself that it was kind of flattering that they were even talking about me. But then I heard what they said. In the bathroom, a couple of sixth grade girls were gossiping. Her pants! Oh my God, have you seen her pants? They asked each other while I sat in the stall. It's like she buys her clothes by the pound. My grandmother dresses better than her. I sat on the toilet waiting for them to leave, my heart clenching like a fist. Then she wrote this letter to the mean girls, and I want you to see that she crosses things out and rewrites them, edits them as she goes to make it a better writing. Dear mean girls, you're right. I buy my clothes by the pound. My mom and I go over to the Goodwill and we buy second-hand clothes. Clothes you probably threw away. I'm probably wearing your socks right now. Let me tell you what it's like to buy second-hand clothes. First, my mom washes it 1,000,000 times. She scrubs it with her hands and then puts it in the washer and then scrubs it again. Still, when I first put it on, I wiggle and squirm, thinking of all the girls who have been inside the pants before. I used to hope it was girls like you, girls who live in big houses, girls who go on vacations in the summer. I used to think that maybe if I was wearing the same pants, I kind of went on vacation too. And that used to make me happy. Now do you know what I think? I think I'd rather never go on vacation than be like you. Mia Tang. P.S. Floral cotton pants are way more comfy than jeans. It was so satisfying writing the letter that, for a full second, I actually thought about putting it into my backpack and giving it to the girls at school. But I didn't. School dragged on. The popular girls continued mocking me. Mr. Yao called up twice a day to scream at us. The only thing that made me feel a tiny bit better was that somebody left $5 in the tip jar after their stay. One afternoon, while I was sitting at the front desk, a beat-up old Chevrolet slowed by the motel. It inched toward us, the driver craning his neck as he peered in. I squinted inside the car and saw a Chinese man. I feared he must be a friend of Aunt Ling's, looking for the blue baseball cap, so I immediately waved at him to come in. Mr. Yao wasn't here. The coast was clear. Uncle Zhu was a big man, about 6'2", 200 pounds of northern Chinese, he said proudly in his thick Harbin accent. My dad pointed at his compact car. And you've been sleeping in that thing? Uncle Zhu had explained that he hadn't had a place to sleep for a little while. It's been a hard couple of weeks, he said, stretching as he said the words. Well, let's get you a proper shower and a meal, my dad said, leading him toward room 3. At dinner, Uncle Zhu told us he had been working as a janitor in a hospice. What's a hospice? I asked. He thought for a minute about how to put it. It's basically a waiting room. You mean like at the airport? I asked. The day I left China, Shen had pointed to the waiting room at the arrival section right before I got on the plane. I'll see you right there in a couple of years, okay? He had said. I nodded. Tears stung the back of my eyes. The time will flash by like a whoom, he'd said. Then he looked down at the floor and whispered, and when you come back, you'll be all American. No, I won't, I insisted. Will too, he had said. Nothing's going to change, Shen. Yes, it will, he said. You're going to come back wearing all kinds of fancy clothes. Oh, Shen, if you only knew. I looked up from my floral pants to Uncle Zhu. So, is that what it is? A waiting room for arrivals? I asked. He glanced at my parents as if to get their permission. They nodded at him. It's a waiting room for people who are about to pass away, he finally said. Oh. Ever so quietly, my mother picked up the last of the beef with her chopsticks and set it down onto Uncle Zhu's plate. Uncle Zhu set off for San Diego the next morning. When I heard San Diego, I dashed to the front office and jotted down another one of the addresses. Uncle Zoo promised he'd drive by and call me if he saw the Thunderbird. As my dad and I waved to Uncle Zoo, suddenly I had an idea. I turned to my dad. "What if we hide Hank like the immigrants?" I asked him. "Then Mr. Yao would stop screaming at us. He would never know." My dad shook his head and said that it was way too risky. The immigrants only stayed for one night, whereas Hank lived here. We were bound to get caught. I decided to drop it. A week later, my parents received their paycheck from Mr. Yao. $140 was missing. True to his words, Mr. Yao was making us pay for Hank, $20 per day. My parents got into a big fight about what to do. My mother said we should quit, but my dad wouldn't hear of it. "Quit?" my dad had said. "And do what? You think it's any better out there? You heard the stories from all the immigrants." My mother didn't respond, but instead went into the kitchen and pulled out stinky tofu paste from the back of the cupboard. Stinky tofu paste was this disgusting concoction you could buy at the Chinese supermarket, which she ate whenever she had been through a lot. And even though I didn't like the smell of the tofu, I still liked it more than hearing my parents fighting. As my mom munched away on her paste, my dad and I sat outside by the curb waiting for the smell to clear. The early evening wind sighed between us. I wanted to tell him it was going to be okay, that I had a plan to save us. All I needed was $300, and I even had a plan for that too. So far I had made $30 in tips, but I didn't end up telling him. I was worried if he knew about the $30, he might take it away, and then I wouldn't be able to save us. And that's the end of chapter 31.